The night air was cold and still when Kang Jisoo locked the front gate of his garage. The street lights flickered, and the mixed city around him slowly went quiet. His garage sat at the edge of the district, close to old storage yards and empty service roads. It was not a place important people visited. Jisoo liked it that way. He worked on engines, cleaned tools, and went home alone. That routine kept his life simple. A low hum broke the silence. Jisoo turned and saw a transport vehicle stop in front of the garage. It was clean and official, not like the rusty machines he fixed every day. The doors opened with a sharp sound. 2 uniformed guards stepped out first. Behind them came Park Do-yeon, a city official Jisoo had met only once before. Do-yeon walked toward him with stiff steps. His face looked tired, like he wanted to be anywhere else. Jisoo felt a knot form in his stomach. Officials did not come this late without trouble. "You are Kang Jisoo, correct?" Do-yeon said. Jisoo nodded. "Yes, by order of the Interspecies Council," Do-yeon said. "We are assigning a supervised individual to your property." Jisoo frowned. Supervised individual. Before he could ask more, the guards moved aside. Another figure stepped down from the transport. She was taller than Jisoo, with pale skin that did not look human. Her eyes reflected the streetlight in a strange way, like polished stone. Metal restraints circled her wrists and neck, glowing faintly. "This is Era Lin," Do-yeon said. "She is to remain here." Jisoo stared. His garage was small. It had tools, spare parts, and a narrow restroom. It was not a holding place. "You must be mistaken," he said. Do-yeon shook his head. "This is punishment. Not for you." For her, Era Lin did not move. She stood perfectly still, eyes forward, breathing slow. Jisoo could not tell if she was angry or calm. He had heard stories about dangerous alien species, about strength that could crush steel, and minds that could bend thoughts. His hands felt cold. "She is classified as high risk," Do-yeon continued. "Do not remove the restraints. Do not allow her to leave the building. Report any unusual behavior." "Why here?" Jisoo asked. "Why my garage?" "Because you are human," Do-yeon said quietly. "And because humans are considered neutral." The words stung. Neutral sounded like disposable. Do-yeon handed Jisoo a tablet with legal seals and long lines of text. Refusal would lead to fines, loss of license, and worse. Jisoo did not need to read every word. He already knew the answer was decided. "I did not agree to this," Jisoo said. "You do not need to agree." Do-yeon replied. The guards removed a locking cable from the transport and attached it to a metal post inside the garage. They guided Era Lin forward. She walked without resistance. When she entered the garage, the air felt different. Jisoo could not explain it, but his chest felt tight, like before a storm. The guards left quickly. Do-yeon paused at the door. He looked back once. "Do not try to talk to her too much," he said. "It is safer that way." Then he left. The transport drove away, and the street returned to silence. Jisoo stood there, heart pounding. Era Lin stood a few steps inside the garage, the restraint cable limiting her movement. She did not look at him. She did not test the restraints. She simply waited. Jisoo cleared his throat. "You can sit," he said, pointing to a metal chair near the wall. She did not respond. After a moment, she slowly moved and sat down. Her movements were careful, measured, like she was afraid of making a mistake. Jisoo noticed marks on her wrists, old scars that did not match the restraints. He did not know what to say. The garage felt too small now. He turned on more lights, busying himself with small tasks. He cleaned a wrench that was already clean. He checked an engine he had finished hours ago. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Era Lin finally spoke. Her voice was calm and low. "You are afraid." Jisoo froze. "I am cautious," he said. "That is fear with control," she replied. He glanced at her. Her eyes met his for the first time. There was no threat in them, only awareness. "How dangerous are you?" Jisoo asked before he could stop himself. She considered the question. "That depends on others," she said. That answer did not help. Jisoo brought out a bottle of water and set it on a nearby table, just within her reach. She looked at it but did not touch it. "You may drink," he said. "I do not know your rules," she said. "In my culture, accepting aid creates obligation. This is just water," Jisoo said. She picked it up, studied it, then drank slowly. Nothing happened. The world did not end. Jisoo felt foolish for expecting it to. As the night grew deeper, Jisoo prepared a small space in the corner with a folded mat and blanket. He placed them near her chair. "You can rest," he said. She looked confused. "Rest is not required during punishment," she said. Jisoo paused. "You are still a living being." Lynn stared at him for a long moment. Then she lay down, careful not to cross the limit of the restraint cable. She closed her eyes but did not sleep. Jisoo locked the garage door and sat at his workbench. He kept his tools close, though he did not know why. He watched the slow rise and fall of her chest. She never shifted, never sighed. He thought of the council. He thought of how easily they had chosen his garage. He realized this punishment was not only for her. It was a test. Of her. Of him. Of humans. Near dawn, Lynn spoke again. "Why do you accept this burden?" she asked. Jisoo answered honestly. "Because I have no choice." She opened her eyes. "Choice exists even when denied," she said. Jisoo did not reply. The sky outside began to lighten. Another day would begin, and his garage would open like always. But nothing would ever be simple again. Lynn remained still, restrained and silent, labeled dangerous. Jisoo sat alone with his thoughts, unaware that the council had already made a mistake by leaving her there. They believed punishment would break her. They did not understand humans. And they did not understand what happens when fear meets quiet kindness. Days passed in the garage with an unusual quietness. Jisoo went about his normal work, fixing engines, cleaning tools, and organizing spare parts. The hum of machinery and the smell of oil filled the air, the same as before. But now there was Lynn, a constant presence in the corner, watching, learning, and silently testing the boundaries of her new environment. She moved carefully in the small space, never exceeding the length of her restraint cable. Even when Jisoo offered her simple tools to pass the time, she handled them cautiously, as if afraid to make a mistake. At first, he thought it was fear, but he began to notice a different quality. She seemed to study everything. Each movement, each sound, each gesture was recorded in her expressionless face. Jisoo tried to make conversation. He spoke about trivial matters, weather, his work, city events. Lynn did not respond at first. She would tilt her head slightly or glance at him with calm observation. But she never mocked, never threatened. Her silence was different from defiance. It was something more cautious, more deliberate. One morning, as Jisoo prepared a small breakfast of rice and vegetables, Lynn spoke. The sound of her voice in the quiet garage startled him. "Why do you eat when you could work?" She asked. "I eat to stay alive," Jisoo said. "And because it tastes better than working all day without food." She studied the food, her eyes scanning every grain. "In her culture," she said later, "to eat without purpose is wasteful." Jisoo nodded. He understood that she measured life differently. And yet, here she was, adjusting, doing what was necessary to survive. Lynn did not attempt to remove her restraints. She did not lash out. Instead, she adapted. When Jisoo cleaned an engine, she would watch closely, noting every motion, every step. Sometimes she mimicked the motions, careful not to make errors, as if she were learning from him. Other times, she would just sit and observe the patterns of his hands, the rhythm of his work. Over time, small gestures began to emerge. She learned to help Jisoo with small tasks, passing him a wrench, holding a bolt steady, not because she had to, but because she understood that this cooperation made life smoother. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Jisoo noticed. His respect for her grew as he realized she was learning from him, but also quietly judging, measuring his actions for efficiency and fairness. Sometimes, Era Lin would ask questions about human society. "Why do you help your neighbors?" she asked one afternoon. "Because it is the right thing to do," Jisoo replied. "Because it makes life better for everyone?" She considered this. It did not match her understanding of the universe. In her culture, helping others was conditional, based on status and obligation. Human behavior was chaotic to her, but she seemed intrigued. That curiosity was dangerous in its own way, he realized. Dangerous because curiosity could lead to unexpected change. One day, a small incident occurred that revealed her careful restraint. A pipe in the garage burst, spraying water across the floor. Era Lin reacted instantly, catching a falling wrench, pulling a tarp to cover the engine, and moving the tools away from danger. Jisoo was impressed. She could act with speed and strength, but she used it to protect, not to harm. He understood then that the label of dangerous had more to do with fear than reality. Despite her careful actions, tension always lingered. Jisoo noticed the way she flinched at loud sounds or sudden movement. Her muscles tensed, her eyes darted, and her breathing changed. He realized that the alien justice system had left deep marks. Era Lin expected punishment at any moment, even when none was coming. Her culture had taught her that any misstep could be fatal. He began to speak gently to her about choice and safety. Sometimes he simply described his day. Sometimes he asked for her opinion on mechanical problems. She would answer in brief phrases at first, slowly growing more detailed. The longer she stayed, the more she realized that humans did not operate on the same rigid rules. Mistakes were allowed. Failures were tolerated. This was unfamiliar, but it also felt liberating. Jisoo started leaving small notes for her. On a clean table, he wrote reminders, tips, and occasionally a few thoughts. "You may rest," he wrote one morning. "You are not required to work continuously." Era Lin read each one carefully. Sometimes she responded with short written notes, thanking him or asking questions about his suggestions. Communication became a delicate dance, small gestures that built trust without breaking cultural boundaries. As the days passed, Jisoo began to understand that Era Lin's so-called dangerous nature was misunderstood. Her strength, speed, and intelligence were tools. The danger lay not in her actions, but in the way others perceived her. Alien authorities had punished her based on potential, not actual behavior. Humans, he realized, were different. They looked at results, effort, and intent, not just capacity. A turning point came when Jisoo accidentally spilled oil near her mat. Era Lin did not react with anger. Instead, she carefully cleaned the area with a small cloth, moving slowly, deliberately, avoiding contact with her restraints. Jisoo realized that she was learning human patience and care. Her actions were precise, disciplined, but influenced now by something she had never known before: human empathy. Some nights, Jisoo would catch her watching him sleep, sitting upright in the chair, eyes focused. He did not know if she was evaluating him or simply observing. He began to leave small gestures: blankets, a pillow, a warm cup of tea, without expecting acknowledgement. Era Lin began to accept them slowly, as if measuring trust by the consistency of his actions. Though her presence was constant, she never interfered without reason. The garage became a space of cautious coexistence. Tools clanked, engines hummed, and two beings from entirely different worlds shared the same space. Neither fully trusted the other, but both began to adapt. Jisoo realized that this was more than punishment. This was a test of patience, resilience, and the quiet strength of humanity. Sometimes he caught himself imagining what would happen if alien authorities returned unexpectedly. Would Era Lin fight? Would she comply? Or would she finally understand the difference between fear and respect, punishment and understanding? He did not know the answer, and that uncertainty was both frightening and oddly comforting. As the week drew to a close, Era Lin spoke more openly. One afternoon, while helping him repair a small hover engine, she paused. "You are patient," she said. "More than I expected." Jisoo smiled faintly. "Humans learn quickly when they have no choice," he said. She considered this, then nodded. In her silence, he sensed a shift. Trust was slowly growing, not loudly or quickly, but in small, measured increments. Something neither the Council nor her own species anticipated was happening. Human empathy was meeting alien discipline, and both were changing in quiet ways. By the end of the second week, Jisoo realized that living with Era Lin was no longer simply about obeying orders. It was about discovering new ways to communicate, new ways to understand behavior and culture. He had begun to see humans differently too, more flexible, more adaptable, and capable of quiet heroism. Era Lin, the so-called dangerous alien, was not breaking her restraints. Not because she lacked strength, but because she was learning the value of choice and cooperation. Jisoo, the quiet mechanic, was not powerless, but because of his empathy, consistency, and patience. He was shaping the behavior of an entire species' official classification. Together, they existed in tension, a mixture of observation, respect, and cautious trust. The garage was no longer just a place to repair engines. It was a small laboratory of coexistence, a quiet battlefield of patience and understanding. And though neither spoke of it directly, both knew that their time together would change more than just the rules of punishment. Jisoo noticed a change in Era Lin as he continued his work in the garage. Her movements were still careful, precise, but there was something else now. Her eyes showed curiosity beyond observation. She began asking questions about human customs, about daily life, and about simple choices. Jisoo answered honestly, describing the small joys of food, work, and community. Each answer seemed to surprise her, and he realized that her so-called dangerous nature might have been misunderstood. One evening, while Jisoo was repairing a hover engine, Era Lin broke the quiet. She spoke carefully, each word measured. "Humans," she said, "accept many small hardships without complaint." "Why?" she asked. "Because we have to," Jisoo said. "But also because we believe some things are worth protecting." Her expression shifted slightly, a hint of thought behind the pale gaze. That idea was strange to her. In her society, obedience was everything. Rules were enforced strictly, and failure meant punishment. Choice was rare and often punished harshly. Jisoo did not know it yet, but his calm words were changing her understanding. A few days later, while sorting parts, Jisoo found an old communication device tucked away in a shelf. Curious, he switched it on. A recording played, faint and distorted, a voice speaking in Era Lin's native language. He could not understand the words, but he noticed her tense posture. She moved closer, listening intently, then touched the device with trembling fingers. "This was private," she said softly. Jisoo stepped back. "I am sorry. I didn't mean to invade your space." She shook her head slowly. "No," she said. You see now, what they think is dangerous is not always true. Over time, Jisoo learned more from her small gestures and brief statements. The council, he realized, had punished Era Lynn not because she had caused harm, but because she had refused an order from her own species. A moral choice, something considered unacceptable in her world, had led to severe punishment. That revelation shocked him. The so-called dangerous alien was not violent. She was principled. As Jisoo continued his work, he noticed more subtle aspects of her nature. She was capable of strength and speed beyond human limits, but she never acted without reason. She had restraint, a discipline that humans admired but rarely understood. In her culture, emotions were dangerous. In his, emotions were a form of strength. One afternoon, Era Lynn asked him to explain why humans sometimes risk themselves to help others, even strangers. Jisoo paused. Because we value more than survival, he said. Because courage and compassion are important. Her eyes studied him closely. That is dangerous, she said softly. Humans give power to the weak by trusting them. She did not fully understand the idea, but she began to see it in action. Every small act of kindness, every patient gesture, every choice made without fear or reward became a new lesson for her. Jisoo noticed that Era Lynn's interactions with him were becoming more flexible. She no longer moved like a prisoner under observation, but like someone cautiously testing her freedom. She would move slightly beyond the restraint cable, stretching, adjusting, but always without breaking limits. It was subtle, a small rebellion against the rigid rules she had been forced to follow. One evening, a minor accident occurred. A stack of parts fell near her. In her reflex, she could have struck the stack violently to stop it, a force capable of crushing metal. Instead, she used careful, precise movements to stabilize the parts, showing both strength and control. Jisoo watched in awe. The so-called dangerous alien had learned patience and precision through observation and trust. He realized that what her species considered dangerous was not power, but emotion and choice. When emotional bonds were formed, her abilities could be unleashed in ways her culture feared. The council had punished her to prevent those bonds, yet Jisoo was witnessing the subtle ways those bonds were forming. They shared small conversations, mostly about life, work, and simple observations. Era Lynn asked about human family, friends, and responsibilities. She wanted to understand why humans worked, struggled, and sometimes risked everything for others. Jisoo answered with honesty, explaining failures, mistakes, and successes. Slowly, trust developed. Era Lynn no longer flinched at sudden movement. She no longer held herself in rigid silence, only to observe. She engaged in the work of the garage, assisting without being asked. Small moments, like handing him tools before he requested them, or noticing a detail in an engine he had overlooked, became evidence of a growing bond. Jisoo began to realize that the council had misjudged her. They assumed that isolation and supervision would break her. Instead, she was adapting, learning, and even thriving in the human environment. Their punishment had inadvertently allowed her to experience compassion, empathy, and choice concepts her culture did not permit. One morning, Jisoo found her quietly sitting by the garage door, watching the sunrise. The restraint cable lay slack, and she had learned to position herself carefully. She did not speak at first, just observed. He approached slowly. Why are you here so early? He asked. To see the world without rules. She replied simply. That small answer held more meaning than he could articulate. He understood that she was seeing life differently. She was learning that danger was not simply power or strength. True danger lay in the fear of choice and emotion. Humans, he realized, were dangerous in a way her species had never considered. Their coexistence had become more than a punishment. It was now an education for both. Jisoo learned that patience, empathy, and simple actions could influence beings with far greater abilities than his own. Era Lin learned that strength and discipline could be balanced with choice and care. By the end of the third week, Era Lin spoke more freely. She asked about human freedom, laws, and mistakes. She studied engines with him, following his movements, but asking why he chose certain methods. She began to imitate his techniques, incorporating her own disciplined precision. The garage was no longer simply a place of work. It had become a quiet laboratory of culture, learning, and understanding. Two species, different in every measure, shared the space and learned from each other. Trust, once impossible, was slowly forming. Jisoo understood that Era Lin's punishment was failing not because she disobeyed, but because she adapted. Human patience and empathy were reshaping her understanding. In time, he suspected, the council would be forced to reconsider their judgments. The dangerous alien, left at his garage, was discovering humanity's quiet power. One simple choice at a time, the sound of engines rumbled through the quiet street one morning. Kang Jisoo was working on a hover engine when he looked up and saw a convoy of official vehicles approaching his garage. His stomach tightened. It had been 3 weeks since Era Lin had arrived, and during that time, he had seen changes in her behavior. The council had expected fear and breakdown, but instead she had grown calmer, more disciplined, and strangely cooperative. He did not know what they would do when they returned. The vehicles stopped, and several officials stepped out, their expressions formal and unreadable. Jisoo recognized Doyun immediately. He was followed by 2 others, each wearing badges of authority. They walked with confidence, expecting control. Kang Jisoo stood, wiping his hands on a rag. "What brings you here today?" he asked. "We are here to evaluate the punishment," Doyun said. Era Lin was seated quietly in her corner, her posture straight and careful. The restraint cable limited her movement, but she did not appear nervous. Her eyes followed the officials without fear, and for the first time, Jisoo realized she was aware of her own power. The lead official stepped forward. "Is the subject complying with the terms?" he asked. Jisoo hesitated. "She is calm and cooperative," he said. "She does not cause trouble." The officials exchanged glances. This was unexpected. Their instructions were clear. The punishment was meant to be isolating, a demonstration of control. Yet here was Era Lin, adapting, learning, and seemingly unaffected by the isolation. The lead official spoke, his voice low but sharp. "We need to ensure that the punishment is effective." Era Lin's eyes narrowed slightly. She did not move. There was no hostility, only quiet observation. Jisoo stepped in. "She has adapted," he said. "That is the purpose, isn't it? To allow for growth, for correction, for understanding?" The officials looked at him with a mixture of irritation and disbelief. Humans, they whispered among themselves, were unpredictable. One of them moved closer to Era Lin, reaching for her restraints. She reacted immediately, stepping back within the limits of her cable, her movements precise, controlled, and powerful. Jisoo could see the tension in her muscles. She was ready, but not aggressive. "Do not touch her," Jisoo said firmly. The officials paused. "This human," he said quietly, "displays confidence that exceeds his strength." Era Lin spoke, her voice calm but firm. "I am not resisting," she said. "I am aware. I will not act without cause." The lead official frowned. "The restraint alone should ensure compliance." Jisoo shook his head. "Compliance without understanding is not control," he said. "She has learned restraint and choice. Punishment should not break her spirit." A tense silence filled the garage. Outside, engines hummed, ready to intervene if necessary. Inside, 2 species faced each other in a standoff that required no words. The officials finally spoke. "We will take her back," the lead official said. She is not yet ready to reintegrate into society under your supervision. Erlin tilted her head. I choose to remain, she said. The officials froze. That was not a response they expected. Humans, they muttered to themselves. And the subject, she had formed a choice. Jisoo stepped forward. She has learned to control her abilities, he said. She understands cooperation and trust. Removing her now would undo all progress. The officials consulted quietly, whispering in their language. Jisoo could not understand, but he could see tension. This was not going as planned. Erlin spoke again, her voice steady. My abilities are dangerous only when I am forced or emotional. Here, I am calm. I am not resisting. I am choosing. The lead official's eyes widened. They had assumed punishment would break her. Instead, it had strengthened her understanding of choice and restraint. Jisoo took a deep breath. Humans are different, he said. We value understanding and trust over fear. She has adapted because she learned patience, care, and respect. Those lessons are more powerful than any punishment. A younger official stepped forward. How do you know she will not rebel? Jisoo smiled faintly. Because she understands that strength without control is meaningless, he said. And because she knows that I will not act out of fear or anger. Erlin remained quiet, but nodded slightly, as if confirming his words. Her presence was calm, but there was an unmistakable power in her posture. She did not need to threaten. Her discipline alone commanded respect. After long moments of silent evaluation, the official spoke again. We will not remove her at this time, the lead official said, but she remains under your supervision. Any incident will result in immediate action. Jisoo nodded. Understood. The officials left, the engines fading into the distance. The garage returned to its quiet routine, but a tension lingered. Jisoo realized that the council had misjudged both Erlin and humans. Fear and punishment alone could not control beings who understood empathy, trust, and choice. Erlin stood and moved closer to him. You have taught me, she said. Not through force, but through understanding. Jisoo felt a quiet pride. It was a small victory, but meaningful. Her abilities had not been triggered through violence, but through mutual respect. That was something no council mandate could anticipate. Days passed, and the garage continued its rhythm of work and quiet companionship. Erlin helped more with engines, observing closely, asking questions, and occasionally offering suggestions. She had become part of the daily life there, not as a prisoner, but as a learner and observer. Jisoo noticed the subtle shifts in her behavior. She no longer flinched at sudden noises. She spoke more openly, though always carefully. She began to experiment with choices, small freedoms that reflected her growing understanding of humanity. Even when the council returned for routine checks, they found her calm, cooperative, and disciplined. Erlin's presence challenged their assumptions about punishment, strength, and fear. Jisoo watched, knowing that this quiet resistance was more powerful than any argument or force. Together, they had survived the arrival of authority, the threat of removal, and the expectations of both human and alien systems. The garage had become a place of understanding, growth, and subtle defiance. Erlin, once considered dangerous, had learned restraint, cooperation, and the power of choice. And Jisoo, the quiet mechanic, had learned that humanity's strength often lay not in physical power, but in patience, empathy, and courage. The days in the garage grew calmer. Kang Jisoo and Erlin had established a rhythm. Engines hummed, tools clinked, and a quiet understanding filled the space. Erlin no longer seemed tense or fearful. She moved with careful control, occasionally offering insights into mechanics or asking about human habits. Jisoo watched her closely, noting the subtle changes that signaled growing trust. One morning, The air was unusually still. The sunlight streamed through the garage windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Era Lynn had been working silently on a small hover engine component, her hands steady and precise. Jisoo leaned on the workbench, watching her. He realized that she was no longer just a subject of punishment. She was a student, a partner in observation, and in a way, a reflection of human patience and understanding. Suddenly, the sound of engines broke the quiet. A transport vehicle arrived, faster and heavier than before. Jisoo's stomach tightened. He recognized the officials immediately. They had returned, and this time their expressions carried urgency. Something had changed in their orders. The officials stepped out, scanning the garage. Doyan led them, followed by two others. Their eyes fell on Era Lynn. The lead official's voice was firm. The subject is to return to council custody immediately. Era Lynn rose, her posture straight, movements fluid. She did not struggle, but there was an unmistakable aura of control. Jisoo stepped forward, placing himself slightly between her and the officials. "She is calm," he said. "She understands restraint and choice. Removing her now will undo progress." The lead official's eyes narrowed. They expected compliance. They did not anticipate challenge from a human. Era Lynn spoke, her voice clear and steady. "I choose to remain," she said. "My abilities are under control. I will not act without cause." A tense silence followed. The officials whispered among themselves, their confidence wavering. They had expected fear, rebellion, or chaos. Instead, they found calm, discipline, and choice. Jisoo realized then the full impact of what had happened. The council had left a dangerous alien at a human garage, intending punishment. Instead, they had facilitated an unexpected alliance. Era Lynn had learned restraint, patience, and the value of choice. Humans had taught her lessons her own species had forbidden. The lead official stepped forward, his hand hovering near a control device meant to subdue Era Lynn. Jisoo's voice was firm. "Any attempt to use force will provoke consequences," he said. "You underestimate the strength of human trust and empathy." Era Lynn remained still, her eyes focused. Her powers, though formidable, were under her control. They had not been used for aggression, only to demonstrate readiness and awareness. The officials paused. It was clear that they could not act without provoking a response. The quiet authority of humanity, combined with Era Lynn's disciplined choice, created a stalemate. Jisoo spoke again. "She is no longer a punishment. She is a resident, a learner, and a partner. The laws you enforce must recognize that." The council members exchanged uncertain glances. This was not in their plan. They had underestimated humans, underestimated the impact of empathy and patient guidance. They realized that control through fear alone could not dictate outcomes when moral choice and understanding were involved. Finally, the lead official stepped back. "She may remain under your supervision," he said, "but any incident will result in immediate action." Jisoo nodded. Understood. Era Lynn had not rebelled, but she had demonstrated that choice, discipline, and trust were more powerful than fear and punishment. After the officials left, the garage returned to its usual quiet rhythm. Era Lynn looked at Jisoo. "You have shown me strength without force," she said. Jisoo smiled. "And you have shown me that strength can exist even in those who were meant to be controlled," he said. Over the following days, Era Lynn's integration into the garage life became complete. She assisted with engines, learned human methods, and shared her insights. Small gestures of trust and cooperation became routine. She no longer flinched at noise. She no longer hesitated at minor mistakes. And she began to understand human values in a way her own culture had never allowed. The garage became more than a workshop. It became a place of learning, growth, and quiet defiance. Jisoo understood that humanity's quiet power lay not in violence or fear, but in patience, empathy, and moral courage. Together, they faced challenges, officials, and the weight of cultural expectations. But they overcame them through understanding, not aggression. Era Lin's abilities, though formidable, remained under her control, guided by choice rather than coercion. As weeks passed, the garage became a symbol, small but meaningful, of human resilience and quiet influence. Jisoo and Era Lin continued their work. Side by side, a human and an alien, learning from each other, shaping understanding through trust and cooperation. Jisoo realized that the Council's punishment had failed, not through defiance or force, but because of the subtle strength of humanity. Empathy, patience, and moral courage had changed the outcome. The so-called dangerous alien was no longer a threat. She was a partner, protected by understanding and choice. The garage remained a quiet haven, a testament to human adaptability and strength. Era Lin, once labeled dangerous, now thrived in her new environment. She had learned the power of choice, restraint, and empathy. And Jisoo, the quiet mechanic, had demonstrated that humanity's greatest weapon was not muscle or might, but the courage to act with wisdom, patience, and compassion. In the end, they had won quietly. No battles, no loud declarations, just the steady, enduring victory of understanding and trust. The Council had underestimated humans, and the result was clear. Strength, when guided by empathy, could change even the most rigid of expectations. The garage, once a simple workspace, had become a place of human triumph and the quiet victory of morality over fear.